Hey, how's it going today, ladies and gentlemen of the ferret community? I hope you're all doing really well this afternoon, morning, evening, or night, whenever you are listening to this. We are live. This is the live podcast. Record this live every other Thursday on the Twitch channel. So if you want to join the chat, just like the crazy, wacky people that are here right now, you can join if you so desire. But I hope everyone's doing good. Thank you, Callus, for the 49-month Tier 1 subscription. I appreciate that. Next stream, we'll spin a wheel for you, huh? How about that? Ferret Cafe, we just talk about it. We just shoot the shit. Maybe you have a nice cup of coffee, maybe hot chocolate, maybe just a glass of water. It does not matter. I'm just happy that you are all here today to spend the evening with me. Today we got a lineup here. We got the Fallout TV show, finally finished that. We got the Pixar movie ranking, which I'm pretty excited about. But yeah, the first order of business, is I did it, folks. I did it. My dash cam caught an almost accident today, and you'll never guess what happened. Let me fast forward just a smidge. You can't really see anything. Alright, folks, here we go. Oop, wrong button. Oop, wrong button. There we go. Yeah, after last week's conversation, I was like, if something happens, I really need to just save it the day of. Because last week I talked about that bike thing. So we actually have dash cam footage of someone... Well, I guess you'll find out. You don't need to hear my horn going off. Whoa! Mamma mia. Yeah, I mean, come on. And also, if you notice, they aren't stopping. I'm honking my horn at this point. They don't stop. And I actually turned around and looked back, and they were in midway. They were in the middle of the road by the time that they actually stopped backing up. So, I had some good reaction here, even though it was early in the morning. Wonderful. Fantastic. So finally, the dash cam is used. The other thing that I want to talk about early on, just because it's just bugging me the high hell. Yeah, I got summoned to be on a jury, and I put in my little, you're supposed to like fill out a form online or whatever, and give some, answer some random questions. I hate this shit. I hate it so much. I was able to get out of jury duty during the COVID times because I have asthma, and I wrote that into my statement as to why I couldn't do it. That was 2020. So 4 years later, they're trying to get me again, and I hate this so much. I really do. This fills me with such anxiety. Not only when you get the jury summon is it just a frightening fucking thing to get, but inside of the wording for this, it says that the judge is commanding you to show up in the courtroom. I command you to summon you to appear in the court of common pleas. I thought this was America, not the Soviet Union. I command you to show up. The wording on this shit is unreal. I was talking in the Discord. I think I was talking to Greedy, but like, there are people out there who will want to do this, who want to be on a jury. There are thousands of people, maybe even like 100,000 people in my area that would be willing to do it. Just put a little checkmark box in that online thing. Do you want to do this? No. There you go. Send it to someone else. Do my civic duty. Yeah, I'll civic duty all over the place. I'm so annoyed with this. I hate the wording. It sounds dystopian almost, and I hate having to even think about being stuck in a fucking courtroom for how many fucking hours. Hopefully I either get exempted or I don't get chosen at the end of the day. But oh my god, I'm literally just filled with anxiety just thinking about doing this shit. And I'm not one of those people that go and be like, look at this wording. Fuck this wording. Like I can't do that. I'm not like that. But here we are. I command you to be summoned. What? Alright, well that's the start here. Woo! Let's talk about the Fallout TV show, huh? I don't know how many hours it would be. Whenever they start to whenever they end. Have you ever seen a court TV show? No, it's nothing like that. Let's talk about the Fallout TV show. So, let me just pull up my list of episodes just so I can refresh my memory on what happened during, not video game. Oopsie. So the Fallout TV show. A lot of people are giving it very high praises. I'm not one of those people. It's good, but I found myself wanting more from this series. There were a couple meandering episodes that had like something happen at the beginning and something at the end, but the middle was just like nothing. The show starts off really good with the first episode, which I thought was the highlight, and it ends really good. And in between there are good moments, but I found myself just being like, why? What are we doing here? The first episode is really good though. Like I thought the first episode captured everything that I wanted in a Fallout TV show, from life inside of a vault to life in the in the Brotherhood of Steel to just having a ghoul be there, and I thought that first episode really, even though it was pretty clear what was going to happen at the beginning with the Vault 32 comes over. You could tell that they were raiders from the get-go, and I don't think they were trying to hide it, but yeah, I like that idea of the raiders got into the vault and they put on the outfits, and that's how they gained access to Vault 33. And I do like, I actually like most of the stuff that happens with the vaults themselves. That's a really good underlying plot to the whole show, and I almost wish that the entire show was based around, maybe not the entire show, but like more of the show was dedicated to like life in the vault after the raid and the uncovering the other things that were happening there, right? But that's not how it went. So anyway, the ghoul, they take the ghoul out of the thingamajiggy and he kills all the guys, which is a cool scene, and then the show kind of gets going. The next episode is it was fine. Like, it's tough because, like, I like the show, but I'm gonna be like very kind of negative here because I thought that the episode didn't really move anything forward other than, hey, Maximus is now in the same area as everything else going on. And there's a big fight scene in the middle, which is fun. And then, of course, that one guy, he gets his leg chopped off, and yeah, I mean, you know, and yeah. It's funny because a lot of stuff happens throughout the episode, but really the only stuff that matters is right at the beginning, where you see the doctor, who was the same guy from Lost, put the device to his neck and run away. And then the end is really the only important part as well. Lucy gets away with him and has to cut off his head. The rest of the show could literally be taken out and nothing would change. I kind of wanted it to be more of an adventure. It's also very annoying that the same area is used several times. Like, you feel like you're not getting anywhere because they keep showing like this stretch of like 6 or so houses or whatever, and it just feels like they're not going anywhere. Yeah, you know, the doctor and oh my gosh, what's her name? Lucy. The doctor and Lucy are walking through the area, and you're like, okay, that's kind of a cool thing, right? And then, you know, the next time that they go through, it's, you know, the ghoul's going there to, you know, meet the other ghoul and try and get more of the antidote for his ghoulness. And then, you know, they walk past it, you know, the other guy walks past it and gets turned into a ghoul. And then you know, they keep walking back and forth between the same area, and it just feels like they don't go anywhere. And I don't know if, like, I don't know if they meant to, like, have it positioned to be somewhere else, but it just doesn't seem like something. Like, even when they've been walking for miles and miles, it seems, and like they go to Sunny Acres, and they go to here, and they go to there, and then they always end up back at this like group of like 6 like long houses or whatever they're called. And it just, if the show doesn't feel like it's getting anywhere because they keep showing the same place over and over and over again. And it's not like they go back, well, they don't really go back to that little town that had the shootout in it in the second episode. No, I mean, it would make more sense for them to go back to that town. It really would. Like, go back to the town instead of going to this random location where everyone apparently is just ending up in. I was getting annoyed by the end of the show when they were still going past this group of like 6 dilapidated houses. But anyway, in the next episode, Maximus, of course, takes over the Brotherhood. He takes over the identity of Titus because, well, he technically took over the identity of Titus in the second show, but now because they sent a new squire to help him out, which is the Thaddeus or whatever his name is, you know, he has to pretend to be Titus. And I like the Thaddeus and Maximus kind of thing going on. I really didn't like when Maximus, you know, showed himself to Thaddeus. I understand that that's probably what Maximus's character would have done, but I was just so annoyed at that part. I was like, come on, like, are we really doing this? Like, and I know a lot of this stuff is just to move the plot forward. Obviously, you know, it's not like it has no reason. But it's just one of those forced plot things. It's like, why would you reveal yourself to this guy who didn't like you and thinks that you're someone else, and he's a Brotherhood guy? It just doesn't make any sense to me. But they are tasked with tracking down the head, along with, you know, well, Lucy does get caught by the ghoul, and the head gets like eaten by a mutated fish thing, a gulper. And this whole section of the show was just It's just a whole lot of nothing. Like, they were at this lake for like 2 episodes, and I was like, holy shit, can we please just keep going here? Eventually, Maximus and Thaddeus get the head from the gooper, but that's in the next episode. And Lucy is used as bait to try and get the gulper, but she accidentally destroys all of the ghoul's meds to keep him alive, or sane, I guess you could say. So then they have to go on a big, roundabout adventure. It's almost like a Metroidvania. Okay, we got to go back here and get this so we can move forward in the story. And I will say that episode 4 is good. But then again, it's like you could eliminate most of episode 4 and nothing with the plot would change, except for now Lucy is on her own and she leaves the ghoul behind in the supermarket to have a drug trip. Right. And once again, even though I like a lot of the things that happen in this episode, I'm just like, I'm watching it and I'm like, so what are we seeing here? What's going on? I mean, there is some growth by Lucy here, where she kills some the ghoul, right? But and then episode 5 comes around, and that's the one where Thaddeus discovers that Max is actually Maximus in the armor. And he leaves him behind in the armor, which I thought was a good thing. I like, even though I don't agree with Maximus, giving his true identity to Thaddeus, however you say his name, I don't care at this point. I like how Thaddeus knows like the shutdown procedure for the suits. That just kind of leaves Maximus to the elements, right? And it just so happens that Lucy comes around and agrees to work with him. And I do like this episode. I especially like how they get to Shady Sands, and that does become like a plot point in the future. You don't really know of it right now. You just kind of figure, a nuke went off here. But you learn more about that in the future. There's the whole section on the bridge where the fiend shoots Maximus. I thought that was pretty good. I mean, I'm not gonna complain about that. I thought that was a pretty good scene. And it is pretty random that they fall into Vault 4 at the end of it all. But the Vault 4 stuff is fine. But this is when stuff back in the original Vault 33 starts to actually pick up and become interesting. Because there's like an election going on, you kind of see what's going on in the vault, and then Lucy's brother starts to realize there's more going on. He actually ventures into Vault 32 with the door opening guy, and I thought that was, all that's really good. Like, once again, I just want more of the vault stuff. I thought that was the most interesting stuff going on, even though, like I said before, there's a lot of other good stuff going on that I enjoyed. The vault stuff was really the most interesting part of the whole thing, and of course the stuff that's happening in the present is also very interesting as well, but that stuff doesn't really get super interesting until like the last episode. And then the next episode, Lucy and Maximus find out that Vault 4 is safe, and Maximus starts to get accustomed to the safe life inside of the vault, and Lucy, of course, is not like super accepting down there. Like, there's a bunch of people who have mutations. Like the one guy, the overseer is a Cyclops or whatever, and they also worship the leader of the Raiders. They call her the Flame Mother, which I thought was going to be more to the plot, but it ends up just kind of being a red herring at the end of the day, which is not wholly bad, but it's one of those things that's like, it doesn't even matter in the long run. So Lucy goes up to the forbidden level and sees the human experiments, and you already know by the time that because they're trying to like do this whole like run around thing where it's like, oh, Vault 4, it's a dubious place, they're doing blah 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 to the blah blah blah. But I kind of knew, like, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a very brutal scene where the gulpers are hatched from the lady's stomach and all, but I was like, this is definitely from the scientists who were there before, right? They do all this stuff, like they show like test subjects above their door when they're still being decontaminated, and they pan over all this stuff and they talk about the flame mother and stuff. It's all just a red herring, and it all doesn't really. I mean, it makes sense in the grand scheme of things, but it wasn't very convincing to me personally. I'm like, yeah, the scientists who were here before caused all this, and that's of course what happens at the end of the episode. I believe it's the end of this episode. You know, it's like, hey, we're actually okay down here. You know, we accept people in and blah 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 blah, and we're just trying to fix or keep the people who were experimented on, you know, comfortable. You know, so yeah. And it does have a funny scene where, like, Lucy it seems like she's about to be executed, and they like cut her straps and they give her like a week's worth of food or whatever. I mean, I thought that section was pretty funny. It doesn't really make sense that, well, I guess it does make sense that Maximus would do such a stupid thing, but he just kind of charges in, and like, why doesn't Lucy immediately scream and say, hey, everything's fine? But instead she waits until he like beats up like 5 or 6 people, and then she's like, hey, it's fine. All right. This is also the next episode is the one where they're tracking down Thaddeus, and they catch him, and Maximus steps on his foot and breaks it. I did like that series of events where he finds like the guy who is like a seller of like the drugs in the game, and he gives him the thing that turns him into a ghoul. I did like that. I like that a lot. What I didn't like was the fact that they went back to those 6 fucking buildings to do it. Like, where is the scale to this world that you're building? It's nowhere. We're just going in circles. It doesn't matter. He could have been somewhere. They could have led him somewhere else to do the whole turn into a ghoul thing. But yeah, as soon as he took that thing, the inhaler full of that stuff, and his foot grew back, I leaned over to my significant other and I was like, he's a ghoul now. And of course, by the end of the episode, you find out, yep, he's a ghoul. And of course, at this point, because Thaddeus is a ghoul, the Brotherhood would immediately just like kill him. So he hands over the head to Maximus and Lucy, and he runs away. So I'm sure in the next season he'll be important or something. I don't know. And yeah, essentially Maximus just stays behind, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna take this fake head to the Brotherhood. You go to the Raiders. And this is also the episode where like the stuff from the past starts to catch up to the stuff that's happening right now. So they talk about like the cold fusion research, and you know the vaults are being auctioned off to people, and that kind of leads us into the final episode, which is called The Beginning, where like in the past, you know, there's vaults that are being auctioned off, of course, like I already said, but you kind of learn like, you know, what Vault-Tec is doing, and I mean, you know, the underlying message of most of the Fallout games was like, the war happened, but Fallout 4 really is the one where you start wondering, like, is it really a war, or like, is Vault-Tec doing something? And this show kind of confirms it is a part of the canon, so it does confirm that Vault-Tec is the one who pretty much set off the nukes. So there you go. But all these like important people in Vault-Tec were cryogenically frozen, which is really, I mean, once again, the first episode and the last episode are like really good, and the last episode is great. I like the idea of them being cryogenically frozen and releasing themselves. Well, some of them being released into Vault 30, technically from Vault 31, and becoming the head of the 2 different vaults, right? I found that plot point to be very interesting, and that's all a part of the vault stuff that I was talking about before, where the younger brother goes in and he discovers these things. He discovers like a brain in a jar that on like maybe it's not in a jar. It's in a jar, but it's also on like a tread system, like a track, and it's just one of those things that it all just works at the end of it all. Like this episode just really works all as just a single story. It just works so well. And the reveal that like all the vault leaders are from Vault 31 was really good, and I really like that. And I really like that you see some of them in the past parts of the episode too, like especially when Cooper the ghoul meets Lucy's dad for the first time. He's like, holy shit, you wanted an autograph that one day. And it's like it's like you don't like I didn't recognize that it was Hank at the start, but then I was like, oh shit, that's Hank. It's a great reveal, and it wasn't forced down your throat like in Vault 4, right? Like the reveal was super. It wasn't well hidden in Vault 4, but this one, this was actually a pretty good twist here. I also like that the AI guy from Fallout New Vegas is in the show as well. Just a cool thing to tie that in. And I like the whole reveal stuff for Hank and stuff at the end of it all. And also Lucy's mom was the reason that Shady Sands was nuked. I also thought that was a good plot point. I also really liked the action in this one too. I thought it was one of the better action moments when the Brotherhood attacks the Raiders with Maximus at the head, and and the ghoul is like killing the Brotherhood of Steel guys inside the suits because he wore the suits back in the day, and he knows the weakness. Good stuff there. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see what's going to happen in season 2. And it's not like I didn't it's not like I didn't like this whole season as the season 1 as a whole. I was just a little bit underwhelmed for most of it. It wasn't wholly predictable, but there were things that I was like, oh, of course, of course. I also didn't like how, and I've talked about this throughout the entire thing, I just didn't like how it didn't feel like there wasn't much of a journey happening, because they kept going to the same place over and over and over again. I feel like if they just changed things up a bit and just didn't have them walk past this group of buildings in every single episode, it would have felt like more of a journey. But the main journey happens in between episodes. Lucy journeys to the rest of the way to the Raider camp in between episode 7 and episode 8. Maximus journeys between wherever he's dropped to the first place that he meets Lucy in between episode 1 and 2. Like, it's just one of those things, like, we could have had more of a grander scale here, and that would have really just put a bow on this. But instead, it just feels like we're just kind of going around in circles for the most part. Like, even all the way to, like, when Maximus and Lucy cross the bridge, somehow, some way, we still have characters ending up at the 6 buildings, and it's like, why? Like, why? Boy. And a lot of it was good. I'm just not as hyped about it or super as into it as a lot of other people. And this is like a good adaptation for Fallout. It's not like it's bad in that way. Like per like a Fallout adaptation, it's exactly what I want in a way, because it's an original story. It's not just rehashing what you've already seen. It's original story, original characters, original locations for the most part. And that's good because it makes things more interesting because you don't know these characters already. You don't know their plight already. You don't know their story already. So now you're learning about 3 or 4 brand new characters in the Fallout universe, right? And even though, you know, they have nods to things that happened in all of the games, really, with the biggest one being, of course, the end, at the very end of episode 8. I thought it was tastefully done too, where, you know, hey, look, it's a rad roach. It makes sense because rad roaches are everywhere. Although you don't see many of them after that initial rad roach, but that's beside the case. You know, oh look, ghouls. Oh look, Mr. Handy. Oh look, you know, dog meat. You know, oh look. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's like, yeah, that's great. I enjoyed a lot of the nods to the games. It didn't become too excessive, in my opinion. But in terms of just like, as a whole package, I enjoyed like The Last of Us more. Obviously, I thought that was a much better. I mean, obviously, it's based off of something that we already know, but you know, the journey feels complete, and it feels like they're actually moving to different locations, right? I also thought that the newer things that they mixed in there were good. I mean, obviously, episode 3 and The Last of Us is like a standout, of course, but the whole show in general I thought was really good. And the only place that The Last of Us struggles is the fact that, you know, you as a person, as most of us have already played the game, it doesn't go anywhere too unexpected. Like, yeah, sure, episode 3 is unexpected, but the rest of the show, it's not like it's not gonna defy your expectations in a way that's like, oh my god. At least with Fallout, the TV show, it's fresh. Everything's fresh, even though there's nods to other things. Everything's fresh. Everything's new, and that's what I really liked about it. But as a complete package, it just doesn't feel like a tight enough written story. There are moments that I really like throughout all these episodes. There was at least one moment in each episode where it's like, oh, that's a cool scene, or that's a cool part. But as a whole package, it felt like there was a lot of meandering. It felt like there was a lot of like looping around locations, and even though there was a lot of like good plot points, I felt like as a whole it just needed to be a tighter experience in a few different ways. And I like where it starts, and I love where it goes, but the middle just needed to be something needed to be done. And like I said before, I like the stuff that happening with Vault 31, 32, 33. I so wish they focused on that more. Like, it's such an interesting thing because there's no other vaults that we know of that are connected in this way, where there's 3 vaults that can contact each other and can, you know, trade resources and even human beings. Okay, that's really interesting. Give me more of that, you know. And a lot of people probably don't like that stuff. They probably think that stuff's the boring stuff. I thought that was the most interesting stuff out of everything, especially when they go and explore the Vault 32 and realize, oh, it's a wasteland. And the whole thing with Vault 31 is just really great where that goes. That's all I gotta say. So in the end, I'm going to give it like a 3.5. I'm leaning towards a 3. It's closer to a 3 than a 4, I guess I'll say. But a 3.5 right now. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it again before the second season comes out, and maybe I'll change my mind about it. But as at this point, I don't feel like I need to rewatch the show. And that's I said the same thing about The Last of Us as well. It's like I don't really feel the need to rewatch The Last of Us. But I did enjoy The Last of Us way more than Fallout. And yeah, in the end, it's good. Like, there's good stuff in here. I'm excited for the future, but as of right now, it's like, I mean, I wish that I liked it more, I guess I would say. It's still great. Or good. I meant good. It's still good at times, but yeah, I wanted some more stuff that I didn't get, and I just got really annoyed with the looping nature of the story, and like even the Fallout games, like you start in one place, like a vault or being shot in the head, and you journey away from that place so far, you know, and that journey feels complete by the end of it, of course. And of course, it's a TV show, so they're not going to complete the story by the end. But by the end of this season, it should have felt a little bit more like a full journey. It really, from just watching it, a perspective of watching it, it really feels like that. Lucy only journeyed like a state over. That's really all it feels like, because that's all we really see. I mean, sure, we get shots of her walking, but there's nothing happening to like really show like she's journeying, because we keep ending up with the same, with the same stuff happening over and over again. So that's that. I haven't played Fallout 1 and 2. I have them on GOG, so maybe one day I'll get there. Kenobi says season 1 should be more in the vaults where outsiders might come during season 2. That's kind of what happens in the first episode, though. The Raiders take over Vault 2. So, not 2, Vault 32. I liked the stuff that was in the past, because it was like you don't really see a lot of the Fallout universe pre-war, pre-bombs falling. And I liked seeing like this, world built around nuclear power, which of course is very dangerous, as we know from stuff. But yeah, I thought that they did the era pretty good. I mean, it's not like they had like trap remix of Elvis Presley playing, or whatever the Great Gatsby did. But that's that. That's really what I want to say about that. Fallout TV show, 3.5 out of 5. I enjoyed it enough, and I am excited about a future, the season 2, because they can probably fix a lot of the problems that I had with it, just with a bigger budget, and more faith in the project by higher ups. So, yeah. So someone poke Callus, let him know, hey, we're done with the Fallout talk. Before we move on to the Pixar ranking, I would just like to say that I am trying to get back into doing more stuff with YouTube. I was flipping through my videos, and really all I do is really the Ferret 64 Film Freaks, of course. Clip compilation once a year. But I used to do a little bit more where, kind of like how I do in Ferret 64, where I just kind of talk about a game we just finished streaming or something like that. And I used to do like the tier, like I did like 4 episodes of the tier list. So like I did Banjo-Kazooie, Stuntman, Call of Duty 3, and Assassin's Creed Unity, and then I don't know why I stopped, but I kind of want to get back into doing that. Even though I would still do like the Ferret 64 talk about it. In those episodes, I kind of talked about like, the journey in finishing the game, a little bit of the backstory for the game as well, and I feel like I kind of want to do that. And now that I got my streaming set up in a way that I really like, I think I might start doing some more stuff like that. The problem with YouTube though is the traction on there, it's never really been great. It's funny that I get better viewage on, or listens on Spotify than on YouTube on most things. And of course, nothing really beats the streams. But I would like to maybe start doing some more stuff. I think the main problem is finding the time right now. And I guess for a while it's been finding the time, but also just kind of finding the inspiration again. I used to do a lot of stuff where it's like, okay, I'm editing this stuff down, I'm making clip compilations, I made some funny videos here and there with like Madden and Call of Duty Modern Warfare and stuff like that. I don't think I would ever get back into that kind of stuff, especially because I don't really play Call of Duty anymore, especially after Modern Warfare 3, the new one. But yeah, I think it would be interesting to just kind of like maybe do a deep dive into a game that we played on stream, and I can show the footage, and I can talk about it in a way that is interesting, and that's kind of what I'm maybe thinking of doing. I got the footage. I got more than enough footage. It's just kind of like finding that. Right now, it's more so like I just need to find the time and just do it, you know. And maybe it'll only last for a couple episodes. Maybe it'll last for more. I don't know. If it gets the traction, then you know that's all I can ask for. A lot of times I get demotivated, especially when like a video doesn't do well, and then I end up going, well, no one wants this, but then there were people watching it, but whatever. All right, I'm gonna be like Greedy. Where the heck is Greedy Waffles? It's usually when Greedy streams, he's always like, where the heck is this person? All right, let me see here. I think I'm ready for this. Yes, here we are. Let's do the Pixar ranking. You may or may not know this, but I have watched every single Pixar movie because I was a child between Toy Story 1 and right around Toy Story 3 into Cars 2. I was the perfect age for all those movies. I started to age out of it around the time of these, but on rewatches, I've realized that I didn't really age out of it. Well, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. And then I started back up on, like, I kind of dropped off of Pixar around here. I still watched Monster University, of course, back in the day, but I kind of just dropped off around there. And then right around Coco is when I got back into Pixar and actually watching their movies, usually the you know, in theaters, or at least when they come to a streaming service. But I have watched them all. Don't you worry. I've watched them all throughout my life. When did Toy Story 3 come out? Not Toy Story 3, Toy Story 1. Toy Story 1 came out in 1995. So I was, 2 years old? But I mean, I really didn't start watching Pixar until, of course, I was old enough to actually sit down and watch something, which is like 5 or so. And Toy Story was one of the first movies that I really watched. I mean, there was, of course, like The Lion King and stuff like that from Disney. But we're just talking about Pixar. Even though Pixar got bought by Disney sometime around here-ish. No, actually, it was more so around here-ish. Yeah, Monsters, Inc., I think, was the first Disney Pixar movie, right? Maybe not. But I did kind of watch these all in order unknowingly. Because I started with Toy Story, and we had A Bug's Life, and it kind of went from there. I remember seeing Monsters, Inc. in theaters. I definitely saw that in theaters. Same with Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Ratatouille. I watched most of these in theaters. There were a couple that I missed out on in theaters. And then pretty much after Toy Story 3, I don't think I've watched any of these movies in a theater. No, maybe Toy Story 4. I think we watched Toy Story 4 in a theater, but that's kind of I think that's it. Everything else has either been streaming services or Blu-ray. But yeah, this was a suggestion by Lukester, which it was a good suggestion. I mean, we were talking about the Pixar movies, and I'm like, damn, you know, I think I've watched them all. Like, I was thinking about it, like, yeah, I've watched all these movies. And it was a good idea to go back and think about them a little bit, and also think about them a little bit more critically. So let's get started. Obviously, the first movie up is Toy Story. And I know that the animation, in terms of like the human characters, hasn't aged well. I think because a lot of the characters are toys, and a lot of the places that they go to are just filled with toys and they're, whatever. I feel like it hasn't aged too poorly. But if you do see the humans, like there's like a baby or whatever. Yeah, the baby is cursed. Like majorly cursed. I think Sid works in terms of like just like a villain character. Like he looks the part, and he's supposed to be creepy and kind of weird, right? But when the rest of the characters also look kind of weird and creepy, it's not an easy rewatch when they're on the screen, but the rest of the stuff is good. I think that Woody and Buzz's journey is great. The story makes sense in a lot of ways. I don't think I would change much about the story. I also like the part where Buzz is, he figures out he can't fly. Like, that's a very emotional moment. And then Woody finds him like having tea, and he's like, "I am Mrs. Nesbit." It's got some great moments in it for sure. Yeah, this was one that I watched a lot too. Like, I watched this one a lot. This was probably one of my most watched movies when I was a kid. Yeah, I mean, I would probably put this in like the A tier. I thought that I really like the original Toy Story. I think that the original Toy Story it's a classic. It's still great. Is it as good as some of the other movies in the Toy Story world? I guess we'll have to wait and see, huh? Next up is A Bug's Life. A Bug's Life is synonymous with ants. And I watched both of these movies when I was a kid, and I actually watched both of them pretty consistently. In the current day and age, I probably would not choose Ants over A Bug's Life any day, simply because Ants is, one, way worse looking, and two, way weirder of like a kid's story. There's like a whole war scene where like a guy loses his head, like, oh my god. But A Bug's Life, I think this is still a good movie, but it's aged it's aged worse than Toy Story 1 for sure. I think the story is not as good as Toy Story, especially with like the circus bugs. I think the circus bugs I like the characters themselves, but I think like the whole plot point where like Flick is still trusting them even after they lied to him the entire story is kind of weird. I do really like I think the villain Hopper is really good. Like, I think that's one of the better villains in Pixar history, really. I think that the plot isn't as good. And of course the animation looks more dated than Toy Story because they're like ants and insects and stuff. And I never liked the design of the Ladybug character. And I also never liked the design of the spider as well. I always thought that she looked bad. And not like the bad way, not as like, oh, she bad. No, like, yeah, it just looks bad. As a kid, I really liked it, but as an adult, I think I'm just gonna leave it in C tier for right now. I'll dwell on it a little bit more. All right, we got Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2 is easily better than Toy Story 1. It's also easily better than 3 and 4 combined. I think that Toy Story 2 is a perfect sequel in a lot of ways. It grows the Toy Story... I'm going to say universe. It grows the Toy Story universe. It grows it in positive ways. Layering on, like, Woody as a character. Like, I like the idea of him being... he's found by Al's Toy Barn guy, and he's thinking about becoming a collectible, and Stinky Pete is like an actual good twist villain, which I know is kind of crazy for some of these movies, but yeah, Stinky Pete being like the instigator of everything was really good. I also really like I just like Big Al as a character. Like I think he's like relevant even to today. Like there's people who collect in such a way that they kind of remind me of Big Al. I also like how the toys find Woody. Like I think there's a lot of good stuff going on in this, and I think the climax is also really good. Like Stinky Pete, not be he's like I like that. He's like a character. He's kind of like one of those action figure characters that you just see on the shelf for years and years and years and years, and he'll never be played with because he's not a popular character, right? Woody, Jesse, Bullseye, they're all the popular ones. Stinky Pete was the one who didn't get sold. You kind of see that nowadays with certain characters. Like there were Dune action figures, and like the Dune, the big bulbous guy, the big fat boy, was the only one that didn't sell, right? So there's a whole bunch of those on the shelves. Like it kind of is the same thing where it's like, oh, of course everyone wants the Zendaya figure, and everyone wants the what's his face, the Aldib. Everyone wants his character, and they're just gonna leave. They're gonna leave my boy, the fat boy, on the shelf. I think that a lot of Toy Story 2 still is relevant today. And I really like the ending where Stinky Pete gets thrown into, or well, he gets not thrown into it, but he gets put into the little girl's backpack, and she's gonna play with him. And who knows what happened to him after that? We don't need to know, but I think that's a good place to end it. And easily, I think Toy Story 2 easily goes into an S tier, if not high A. But I'm gonna put it in S tier because I do think that Toy Story 2 is factually, objectively, I meant to say, objectively better than Toy Story 1. All right, next up is Monsters, Inc. This is, like I said, this is the first movie I saw in, I guess, the first Pixar movie I saw in theaters. But besides that, I think that Monsters, Inc. is incredibly good. The music, the character designs, the story, the villains, the entire plot is all really good. I mean, Boo is still a little bit creepy as a character, just because I don't think they didn't nail humans until, like, I don't know, The Incredibles. Maybe even Ratatouille. They didn't really nail human characters until like Ratatouille, I would say, because Incredibles is still, they still got some weird character designs in there, like with the oh, it starts with an S. I can't remember his name right now, but Syndrome. But anyway, Monsters, Inc. I really like Monsters, Inc. I think that I know it lost the Shrek for the first animated film Oscar, but let's be honest, I think that Monsters, Inc. really did deserve that one. I mean, out of all the Disney movies to win Oscars, I think Monsters, Inc. is the only one that I truly feel like is a snub that didn't win. Because even though Shrek is great and I love Shrek, don't get me wrong, I do think that Monsters, Inc. is better in a lot of ways over Shrek. And yeah, I mean, I can't really say anything else other than I really like Monsters, Inc. I think I like it better than Toy Story. Not S tier in my opinion, but it's definitely a very strong A tier. I mean, Mike and Sully are just classic characters. The plot and the pacing of the story is really good. I do like the ending and how, you know, I also like the world building too. Like it makes sense that they power their streets with the screams, you know, like the scares, right? And they would, and because they look the way they do, like, why would they ever think about laughter, right? But throughout the movie, of course, they realize that laughter is more powerful than scaring. And I like that a lot as well. So Monsters, Inc. high A tier. I mean, probably if I was really generous, I'd give it an S tier, but I think the A tier is good. Finding Nemo. This one I mean, it always catches me by surprise, just how good this one is. The journey is really good with Marlin and Dory. I think that it's a good chemistry between the two of them, with Marlin being more of the straight man, while Dory is like the goofy, silly one. I think that Dory's character is a lot better in Finding Nemo than Finding Dory, which we'll talk about later. But Finding Nemo has like I would say that like this like has some of the best side characters out of any Pixar movie as well. Like with Crush and with Bruce and the sharks and with the fish tank gang. I always loved that scene where, Nemo is like going to be acclimated into the group and he's like, the Ring of Fire, and then nothing happens and he's like, what's going on, the Ring of Fire? And then they do it. I always loved that. I also like Nemo's escape from that as well. I also think that like Finding Nemo is one of the it's a very pretty movie. The underwater vibe is immaculate in that. I almost wish that there was maybe a remastered Finding Nemo where they just kind of made the visual quality a little bit better. Obviously that would be a lot of work, but I think it would be worth it. And once again, I think the journey of Finding Nemo is great. They go from Nemo being captured by the butt to Marlin sets out on his adventure, and he finds Dory, and then they find the sharks, and then they blow up the submarine, and then they get trapped in the dark depths of the ocean, and they have to outchase the anglerfish or whatever it's called, and then they get kind of lost, and there's the charades fish and the turtles, the sea turtles, and there's a lot going on that's really good about this. The only thing that I would say is a bit of a negative is that moment where they're in the jellyfish fields, the field of jellyfish, and Dory has the fake out death. I think that's the only stain on this movie because it's kind of forced. But all in all, I do think that Finding Nemo is an S tier. I really like that one. The Incredibles. I've never been an Incredibles kind of guy. I'll be honest with y'all. I think it's a good movie. I do like the movie. But I've never been an Incredibles guy. I do think that The Incredibles 1 is very clever in a lot of ways, especially with how it deals with the superhero genre. I mean, this movie came out, I think it came out right around the time when Marvel was starting to kick off, right? But it tackled I liked how it tackled Mr. Incredible's story. How he missed the glory days with Frozone, and it's one of those movies that I do appreciate a lot and I do enjoy it. But in general, it's not one that I really feel the need to go back and watch over and over and over again. Even when I was a kid, we had it on Blu-ray or DVD, whichever it was. And I would always go back to these movies over The Incredibles, because I feel like The Incredibles story, it's memorable, which I'll give it that, it's memorable. But rewatching it, I got a little bit bored because I know what happens. I know everything. I don't need to watch this again. Whereas with Finding Nemo, Toy Story, stuff like that, I like those movies a bit more because it's it's one of those things. It's I like rewatching these ones. The Incredibles, though, I don't really like rewatching The Incredibles. I do like Syndrome and how he is making those ball monsters to fight the superheroes. It's also the only one of the only Pixar movies with real death consequences in it. They show all the superheroes who got killed before Mr. Incredible. I think that was a really powerful scene. But the one thing that I on rewatch, I haven't rewatched in a while, but on my rewatch, I got really annoyed with the kid superheroes, Violet, Dash, and the baby. I got kind of annoyed with them. But I do really Edna Mode. Also is a really great character though. Edna is great. I love Edna. The characters don't look great in the movie. It has that Toy Story and Finding Nemo feel, or Boo feel from Monsters Inc. where they didn't nail down like character designs. I'm gonna put it in B because I think it's better than A Bug's Life, but it's definitely not as good as these other movies. Welcome home, Randy. All right, now we got Cars. Cars. So obviously, I was the correct demographic for Cars. It's a movie with sentient cars. What could go wrong? Watching it as an adult, nothing makes sense in any of the I guess the third Cars movie is really the only one that things made a little bit of sense. But nothing makes sense in the world of Cars and Cars 2 at least. The world building just is not good. It's actually a terrible world. It's more questions than anything else. It's one of those movies that's like, I get the concept, I get the idea, I know why you're making a movie about sentient cars. I get it. But as an adult, this makes zero sense. This series of movies just doesn't make any sense at all. Do I like Lightning McQueen? Yeah, I like Lightning McQueen. Do I like Mater? No. Mater was always annoying to me. He was such an annoying character, and maybe it's because Larry the Cable Guy voices him and turns him in. It's just a very annoying character. I love everything that happens with Doc Hudson, and I think that Cars 3 does a great job of continuing his legacy. We'll get to Cars 3 later. Yeah, this one, it's more so nostalgia talking than anything else because I used to really like this movie as a kid, and I do like the game that came out around the same time. But as an adult, and even when I was a kid, it was never one of those ones that I loved. And even now, I'm really kind of thinking it's probably more like a D tier in a lot of ways. Yeah, I'm gonna go with D tier for Cars 1. Just a bizarre world that never really got fleshed out well enough in any of the movies, I'll be honest. I mean, you can watch any of these movies as an adult. It's never too late to watch a movie. I mean, I just watched The Good Dinosaur last weekend, I don't think that any of these movies, I don't think it's too late for any of these movies, but you might not like Cars as much now because you're an adult and you watch movies as an adult instead of as a kid where you're like, oh, I like Cars. This movie's great. No, nowadays it's like, I'm an adult. Do I like Cars? I do enjoy driving a car, but this Cars doesn't make any sense. Alright, let's talk about Ratatouille. I love Ratatouille. I really do. I've spent a lot of my life thinking about Ratatouille. And anyone can cook. And the story of, what's his name? Linguini, right? Is his name? They named all the characters after pasta. I think that this is one of the best looking in terms of this era of Pixar between the start and I don't know, probably around Inside Out, The Good Dinosaur. I think this is one of the better looking movies. It's got a fantastic story. I mean, the payoff at it's not bombastic like your Toy Stories or your Finding Nemos or your Incredibles, but where the story does excel is it's in the little things, it's in the finer details, and it all comes to a head in that final scene where the food critic tastes the ratatouille. The movie is named after it, and he gets that flashback, and it's just a really beautiful ending to the movie. And I think throughout the whole thing, it's always just, I love watching the food cook, Remy cooking the food, and of course, eventually, Remy is underneath Linguini's hat, so that's a fun plot point there, where Linguini's being controlled, and there's the whole scene where he has to show that hey, look, this is how it works, and everyone's like, what the fuck? It would have been such a modern Pixar thing for everyone to be like, oh my god, that's so incredible. But in this movie, when he shows off that a rat is controlling his every movement, everyone in the kitchen quits, and that's just like a perfect thing as well. But yeah, I think that this is a great movie. It's one of the best Pixar movies. Actually, I would put Finding Nemo above Toy Story 2. But yeah, Ratatouille is definitely at the top right now. I think that's one of the best that Pixar has to offer. Not just from like the visual flair, but also like just how everything meshes together quite well. And it's also a Pixar movie that's like, it doesn't have to be a completely action-packed adventure romp. You know, it doesn't have to be a big time thing. You can have a smaller story and still have just a great end result. And I will talk about that more with a future movie. But yeah, Ratatouille, it's great. It's S tier. Next up is WALL-E, and WALL-E is incredible. It's an incredible tale. It's got great visuals. It's a love story at the core of it all, but it's also got a nice plot in the background. Now, I think that the villain in WALL-E doesn't really work as well as I would want it to. The ship, essentially the steering wheel, being kind of the villain in the movie, not allowing the humans to go back to Earth. I also really don't like the design of the humans in this one. Like, I think the humans are just, I mean, they're like blobs, sure, but I never liked the look of the humans. I would rather have it just been a story about WALL-E and robots, right? And the human, like, let's say the humans left Earth and they just all died out and the ship is just running on its own with robots. I don't know, maybe I would have liked that a little bit more. But in general, WALL-E is a fantastic movie. It's a great experience. It's a classic. I mean, what can you say? I mean, there's a lot of great music in there, a lot of great visual design, visual flair. I think the first half of the movie is stronger than the second half, but it's still a great movie in the end. I'm going to put it right below Monsters, Inc. in A tier. You can also find the game is also pretty good too. Surprisingly, the game is pretty good. All right, Up. Time for some controversy. I don't like Up. I thought it was boring. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the side characters. The best part of Up is that first like 10-minute segment where they go through the story of like his relationship with his wife. And then the rest of the movie just does not live up to that. I think that the climax at the end is pretty good. But in general, I just really didn't connect with this one. And it just was if on a more recent watch, which was probably about 5 or so years ago now, it still didn't connect with me. As a kid, I was bored by it, and as an adult, I appreciate it, but I don't like it. And like I said, like the ending climax is pretty exciting. You know, it's not like it's not. It's pretty exciting at the end of it all. But like even Doug being a cute dog doesn't make up for the fact that it's just kind of like a boring movie to me. I wasn't very entertained by this one. Like I said, I didn't like the the side characters, and I didn't like the little Boy Scout kid. I was not impressed by this. And I know that there's a lot of people who love this movie. I just don't like it. I don't. And I'm not going to put it below C tier, but I will keep it in C tier because I know that if I put this below in D tier where I kind of want to put it, people are going to really be upset. But I think below A Bug's Life is upsetting enough to most people. All right, Toy Story 3. Woo! I got another controversial take. I don't really like Toy Story 3. I think Toy Story 2 was the best of the Toy Story series, and the other movies just don't live up to that. And Toy Story 3 is really just a rehash of Toy Story 2. It's kind of annoying. I don't mind Lotso as a villain, but as a twist villain, he's not that great. It's not really that great of a twist. I also really like I love the ending, like where Andy gives his toys away. But the whole section where like all the toys are about to die in the furnace always annoyed me, because you knew that, because there's no stakes. You know that all these toys are going to survive. There needs to be a way for them to get back to Andy. They could take out that whole section where they're about to die and it's very emotional, and I would have liked the movie better. But as an entire package, like, even though I do really like that scene where they're breaking out of the jail, quote unquote, and Mr. Potato Head puts his parts on like the tortilla shell or whatever, the tortilla. I think for the most part, I'm not a huge fan of Toy Story 3 in terms of just like Toy Story as a series. In terms of like objectively in a Pixar ranking, I'm gonna put it at the top of C tier, because there's some things that I enjoy about this movie, of course. But for the most part, I just really felt like it was just a rehash of what we already have seen from the Toy Story universe. And in general, I like the whole plot point of like Woody not being trusted for some reason. Like, oh, we were gonna go up into the attic and no one believes him. I cannot wrap my head around that. It doesn't make any sense. We've had two full movies of character growth from every single character in Toy Story, just for it to be all erased at the very beginning of Toy Story 3. Not my favorite thing ever. But I also really didn't like Lotso's like thug baby thing. Like, I really didn't like that character in the movie. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it in C tier. I'm not a huge fan of Toy Story 3. Oh boy, I think that Pixar went through a bit of a drubbing here, because Cars 2 sucks. I don't think this is controversial to say, but Cars 2 is one of the worst movies in Pixar's repertoire. It's not one of the worst animated movies ever. There's obviously worse animated movies out there, but in terms of Pixar movies, Cars 2 is just, throw that shit in the trash. How did this ever get released? Like, it is so fucking bad, and the main reason for that is because it's a pretty much a Mater-centered story, and I hate Mater. I don't hate him, but I dislike Mater. And the whole like spy aspect of the movie, it's so stupid, and the world building is awful, just awful. It doesn't do anything with the concept to move the world forward. It just stalls, which is a car joke. It just kind of stalls, and it doesn't go anywhere, and it's just one of the most annoying, frustrating fucking movies I've ever seen. It's an easy F tier, and I don't think that's controversial at all. It's easy F tier. I don't want to talk about Cars 2 anymore. Brave. Man, I'm going through these movies, and this is the last. Oh no, it's not. Brave is a movie that is not good. There are some things that I like about it, like the archery scene where Meredith is shooting the bow and arrow. But for the most part, I just wasn't into this one, and it maybe other people are. I don't really see people really talking about Brave in any way. I think that's kind of like a forgotten Pixar movie at this point. I know that Meredith shows up in like Ralph Breaks the Internet or whatever, but yeah, I never liked Brave. I think this is one of the last movies that I saw. Other than Inside Out, I think this is one of the last movies I saw in theaters for Pixar, and it was a bit of a snooze fest, in my opinion. It's not on the same level as Cars 2. I would put it above Cars 1 at least, because there is some nice flair there, and it is like a unique story in a way where it's like, it's a bunch of Scottish people. It's a Scottish story. You don't really see that too often in animated movies, at least. There are a few Scottish stories in regular movies, like The Wind Shakes the Body and stuff, that are pretty good. But this Brave, I put that in D tier. It's not very good. Monsters University. So this is one, when I watched it originally, I didn't like it. But when I rewatched it after going through college, I was like, yeah, I actually really enjoyed this. I mean, I don't enjoy it enough to put it on the same level as Monsters Inc. 1. But Monsters University, it grew on me on rewatches. And the last time I watched it, I was satisfied with it. I think that once again, I think the first half, maybe more like first 75%, is really good, and like the last 25% is just like okay. But I like it. I thought that initially I thought that it was unneeded, and obviously there are some things that kind of bring this one down simply because it's like we already know where the story goes. Like we know that Randall becomes a villain, we know that Sully becomes the best scarer on the scare floor, we know that Mike is his assistant, you know. But I think the main story here is like you don't necessarily like. What is the main story? The main idea of this one is sometimes your dream is not exactly where you're gonna end up. Mike wanted to be a scarer his whole life, and he ends up being an assistant to a scarer, but he feels fulfilled by that job in the end, right? And even though a lot of those characters who are in that frat house or whatever you want to call it aren't very scary in general, I think the most scary person in that group is the guy with the tentacle arms. Everyone else is kind of like goofy. Even though I feel like none of those monsters are technically scary, Mike is definitely like a cutie patootie. I could pinch his little cheek, you know what I'm saying? And I do like how the story wraps up, especially with them being like, oh, we're starting in the mailroom and then they're gonna build up to be on the scare floor. I love that ending. But the whole like games thing, and you know how Sully rigged the last thing for Mike, like I didn't feel like, I was just kind of like But the first 75% of this movie is really good though, and that's why I would put it above The Incredibles. Next up is Inside Out. This one's generally good. I think this is a good one. The idea is solid, but the execution is a little bit lacking because obviously this is a very like dumbed down version of like your emotions when you're a kid, right? You have happy, you have sad, you have anger, you have fear, and then envy or whatever. It's like, okay. The next Inside Out movie, I don't think it's going to be as good as Inside Out 1. But Inside Out 1 is generally a good movie. I like how happy I like how joy, not happy, joy. I like how joy and sadness have to go through kind of the same changes as the main character, like the girl is having in the story. Which is interesting, and it's also a very well written movie as well. Like I think that it has a lot of good elements in there. I really enjoyed Bing Bong, and I like how they fall into that chasm of like forgetting. And I was just thinking about it, like if the main character Riley forgot that there was joy and sadness in the world, like what happens there, right? So there are some goofy things about it that don't really make sense, but in general, I think that Inside Out is a good movie. I'm not like super excited about the sequel simply because I don't feel like this movie really needs a sequel. I don't really think a lot of Pixar movies technically need a sequel. I mean, I don't think there needs to be a Toy Story 5. I don't think there needs to be, you know, a Cars 2 or 3. I don't think there need to be a Finding Dory. I don't think there need to be any number of movies that have sequels. A lot of them really don't feel like they need a sequel. And I think that Inside Out is another one of those ones that's like, I don't really think it needs a sequel. But in the end, I think I'm going to put Inside Out at the end of B tier. I think that The Incredibles is a little bit more enjoyable in a lot of ways. But I do like Inside Out. I think that they did a good job with that. Alright, The Good Dinosaur. If you're a part of the Discord, you know that I gave this one a 2 out of 5. And here's why. It's a tech demo. It is literally a tech demo. And the technical side of this movie is great. The backgrounds, the lighting effects, the landscapes are all beautiful, leagues better than Dinosaur from Disney, right? Like, The Good Dinosaur, I'll say what I want about the story, but the computer graphics I think they will age really well. They look really good, even however many years later at this point. The place where this movie totally fumbles is, one, the characters are way too cartoony for the world that they set up. I would say the main characters and some of the side characters, because there's a lot of like insects and random dinosaurs and random creatures that you see in the movie that don't look cartoony, and they look great. And then you see Arlo, which is the main character, and his family, and the T-Rexes and the raptors and the pterodactyls, and they all look goofy because they're so overly comically made. They look like they should be in like A Bug's Life or whatever, you know. That's the one place. The second place is the story. I don't think the story is that great in the movie either, especially the part where Arlo's dad is killed by the tidal wave, and then at the end of the movie, Arlo jumps in front of a tidal wave and he doesn't die. He also falls down a waterfall and doesn't die. So, you know, there's that. But also, like, the movie as a whole, I feel like just didn't work. The trope of, like, ancient humans being dog-like has been overplayed at this point. And his side little character being essentially a dog, a human dog, was really annoying. I also found Arlo's character himself to just be, like, insufferable at times. Like, I felt like he just really was... Yeah, he was insufferable at times. Like, he was just, like, the worst throughout the entire... Like, always complaining, like, always getting himself in the trouble. I mean, especially towards the end when he doesn't let Spot, is the character's name, Spot, go with the humans initially. They see the humans and he's like, okay, let's get back home, Spot. And it's like, fuck you, Arlo, fuck this guy, fuck this fucking dinosaur. Like, seriously. And then when nothing really changes between the two characters, but all of a sudden now he's like, oh, I want you to be with the humans. That's your family. It's like, where did that character growth come from? Nothing happened between then and now that changed his thoughts about Spot going with the humans. Also, let me just say, I want to actually show you guys. The Good Dinosaur, humans. The human design in this, like the caveman humans, look awful. The Spot character doesn't look bad, but the caveman characters look horrible. I just want to see the cave. Here they are. Hold on, give me a second. I just want a picture of the cave family. Look at this. Look at them. Compared to Spot, look at them. They look terrible. This looks like Incredibles 1. It's crazy how bad these characters look in a movie that is so beautiful. They have no emotion. They're stiffly animated. They just look so, like, look at how they're standing. I don't understand. Yeah, this character right here is a mix between 40 and 4. There is no in between. It's either 40 or 4. And like I said, like, Spot as a character, like, compared to these other humans, Spot looks good compared to these characters. Sure, I don't want him to be a dog, but I mean, the comparison is just night and day, you know? I don't know what the fuck happened with these other humans, but yeah, it just doesn't look good at all. There was some fun moments in the movie. I guess a few fun moments here and there. Mainly just like, then there's also one pretty good emotional part in the movie that I thought was pretty effective. But for the most part, this is just a big tech demo. The story is not good. I don't think it's F tier. I know there's a lot of people who would put this in F tier. I think it's actually better than Brave and Cars 1. And that's saying a lot about... I mean, I mean, how much have I just complained about The Good Dinosaur compared to Cars 1 and Brave? But I would rather watch The Good Dinosaur over any of those other movies, so... But it's still, like, it's not good enough to be average. It is below average, for sure. Let's move on. Finding Dory. Finding Dory is fine. I'll give it that. I love Finding Nemo, and Finding Dory just is one of those movies that I really didn't feel like is wholly needed. It's kind of like how I felt about Monsters University at first. Finding Dory, though, didn't grow on me. If anything, I kept thinking that it was kind of average. And I think the side characters aren't as good as Finding Nemo. I think that there are some good side characters in there. Like Hank the octopus, I thought was really good. The guy with the bubble on his head, I forget his name. The orca, not the orca. The echolocation guy. I don't remember his name. But I think the main story of, like, Dory trying to find her family and getting trapped inside the aquarium, like, I think that the aquarium stuff is fun, but the story as a whole, not that great. And also, like, the climax where they steal the truck it's a little bit too wacky for this. Like, I understand, like, Finding Nemo had that scene where, you know, like, Nemo pretends to be dead and then he gets put down the drain, and that's all very comical and whatever. But, like, Finding Dory, it takes it to the next level where it's like, okay, Hank steals a truck, and like it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, I don't think that the climax is great. The rest of the movie is fine. Also, like, there's a lot of character growth in Finding Nemo, and it's like Marlin just forgets all that character growth happened, and he, like, yells at Dory at the beginning of the movie, and that really starts it off on the wrong note. So, for all that and more, I think I'm gonna put Finding Dory at the top of C tier. Maybe, I mean, it's closer to a B than a D, but C tier is I think is the best place for Finding Dory. Cars 3. Cars 3 is better than the other Cars movies, but by how much? Not a lot. I like having Lightning McQueen be like the old not washed up, but like the old, and there's a bunch of new cars that are faster than him, and he trains that new yellow lady car. I think that all that is great. He takes on the role of Doc Hudson, you know. I don't think that the new race car characters are great in this movie, and once again, they don't really expand on the Cars universe. Like, how do you really expand on that? It's already bizarrely weak. I do think that it's better than Cars 1 and 2. It's better than Cars 1, but not by a lot. It's a good-looking movie, too. I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna put it right above up in the C tier. Coco. All right, y'all know. Well, maybe you don't know but y'all know Coco is a great Pixar movie. The visual style, the music,
and we're beating Coco.
The characters, the story. It's all great. Maybe the twist villain is not like super good. It's still I think it's a good like villain story. It's not like the best, but I do like that twist where, you know, the guy who was loved by everyone ended up stealing all his work from, you know, the other guy. The ending of, like, there's a few Pixar movies that can make you tear up. The ending of Coco actually had me crying the first time I watched it. I probably would cry again. I can relate to a lot of what happens in Coco, I guess you could say. Yeah, the ending is just very, very strong. I don't think that Coco is better than well, this is a tough one. I think it's S tier. I think it's better than Toy Story 2. But I like Finding Nemo and Ratatouille more. But Coco is definitely up there. I do really like Coco. I think this is one of the best movies that Pixar has made, obviously. And I think that the music just really helps this experience soar, I would say. And also just like the Day of the Dead vibe as well is awesome too. So if you haven't seen Coco, watch this one. It's really good. The Incredibles 2. The Incredibles 2 is a continuation of the Incredibles story. 10 years later. The actors don't sound like the characters anymore. The story is not good. The stuff with Mr. Incredible being at home and being envious of his wife is not good. The whole villain angle is not good. The twist villain is not good. The music is the same from The Incredibles 1. The animation is better, but as in my opinion, Incredibles 2 is I already wasn't a huge fan of The Incredibles, but The Incredibles 2 is a major step down from the original. The setting feels weird because they leaned more into like the 60s or whatever narrative that they had going on. That was kind of there in the first one, but I always thought the Incredibles was like a modern day movie, where The Incredibles 2 definitely feels like, 60s or 80s, not 80s, 60s or 50s, and just, it doesn't like, I don't like The Incredibles 2. Honestly, F tier. I would never watch Incredibles 2 again. It was not good. I liked Edna Mode. That's about it. Sorry. Okay, Toy Story 4. Surprisingly, Toy Story 4 is good. When we went to go see it, I was like, there's no way that we need a Toy Story 4. Like, especially with the ending of Toy Story 3 being that emotional gut punch that Andy gives away his toys to the little girl Darla, right? And it's interesting that like Toy Story 4 is actually needed because it actually does things with Woody's character and the rest of the toys in that actually grows the characters in the universe. It's actually kind of crazy how good this movie was. Sure, it has another like Lotso type character where it's like, oh, they appear to be good at the beginning, but then they're actually evil. Sure, they still have that, but the way that gets resolved is so much better than Lotso in Toy Story 4. I think that the new side characters in Toy Story 4 are not as strong as some of the ones from Toy Story 2 or even the original Toy Story. But I do like them better than Toy Story 3. Especially the Keanu Reeves character. Yeah, Toy Story, and also, like, I thought that Forky was going to be a really annoying character. Like, he starts off kind of being annoying, but I found myself laughing with him, and I found myself really enjoying his character. I like the dynamic between him and Woody, and how Woody's trying to force this, like, you're a toy, we need to get you back to Darla, blah, 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 blah. And in the end, Woody realizes that, well, take what you want from the movie, I guess you could say. This Toy Story 4 was a great stopping point for the series. Why they're making a Toy Story 5, I can't tell you. Money is essentially it. But in general, I enjoyed Toy Story 4 a lot. I don't think I would put it above any of the other movies. Well, I guess I would put it above The Incredibles. Actually, I'm gonna put Inside Out above The Incredibles too. Yeah, I think that B tier is good for Toy Story 4. At this point, I really don't think there needs to be a 5, especially because 4 was already pushing it. And even though 4 turned out to be good, I don't think 5 needs to be done. Onward. There's a whole podcast episode where we talk about Onward in the Film Freaks category. Film Freaks with a Z at the end. I believe I gave it a 3 out of 5, if I'm not mistaken. I thought in general it was fine. I liked Tom Holland's character and the dynamic with Chris Pratt's character. I don't think Chris Pratt was the right pick for the role, though. But I did like the adventure for the most part. It always it does kind of bug me in a lot of movies that I've seen lately, where they have like this idea of like, oh, it's magical creatures who don't use their magic anymore, and they're in a modern setting. It's like, that's cool, but in this movie, like, sure, eventually, like, the characters start learning how to use their magic again. But you could literally replace the characters with any other characters, and the plot really would be the same. They needed to lean more into, in my opinion, the magic world mixing with the modern world. I feel like, because like, having, like, cars on the street and the fairies riding motorcycles and all this, like, you know, houses and stuff just looking like normal houses for the most part. I know there's some mushrooms in there, and having like the unicorns be stray dogs or whatever. Like, I feel like if they had leaned more into the modern clashing with magic, I think that would have been a lot more interesting. As it stands, I mean, it looks good. It was a COVID movie, so a lot of people watched it. I didn't watch it until more recently, but there was moments that I liked, but yeah, I think that C tier is a good place for it. I probably would put it right above Toy Story 3 in C tier. Soul. Soul is a nice movie. It's a nice one. The visual design is pretty unique compared to other Pixar movies, especially Pixar movies before this. I love the story of this. It does get a little bit goofy in there because, like, the main character ends up in, like, the body of a cat or whatever, and the soul that he's with takes over his body for a little bit. But I think in general, it's a lovely story. It's an interesting take on the afterlife and before life too, as well. You don't really see too many movies tackling that kind of situation. I think it's a fun time. I love the music. Like, the music really sets this one apart from a lot of the other ones. Like, it's not as good as Coco's music, but it's still like one of my favorite soundtracks in a Pixar movie. I also like a very strong scene is when the main character is talking to his mom, and technically it's through like the cat's talking to his body, but that whole section is just so lovely. I would put it above Toy Story in A tier, not above WALL-E though, but I do really like Soul. I think that Soul I think it's a little bit underappreciated. Not a lot of people talk about Soul, and it's probably because it came out during COVID time, just like the next movie, which is Luca. I really like Luca. This was a really fun one. I was talking about this idea of like smaller scale movies working out really well when we were talking about Ratatouille, and this one definitely continues what I was talking about. Luca takes place in one city in Italy, and and of course like the part of the sea there too. But it doesn't really do much outside of that city, but it does a lot of great stuff in that time in that small area. I think that the whole idea of like the sea monsters coming onto land and looking human-like when they're not wet, obviously it's a little bit out there. And sure, maybe the movie would have been better if they didn't have that aspect in it, but I think that a lot of the plot points work really well with the idea of like, hey, we are sea monsters trying to be human, you know. I think that the beginning of the movie is a little bit rough in terms of like getting Luca to the land, but once that all starts up and the bike race thing comes apparent, and they start interacting with the girl and her father, and all of that stuff. I really, really enjoyed that. I also really like where it all ends up as well. So, Silencio Bruno. I think that Luca is... Damn, I think it's bottom of S tier. I think it's bottom of S tier. Alright, we got Turning Red up next. This is a movie that I felt like this one just wasn't for me. This one definitely is geared towards the current, like, kid generation, I would say. Even though it's set, like, in the 90s with boy bands and whatever. This one obviously didn't connect with me. I think that it looks great, and I think that there's a lot of fun elements to it. But in general, it's not a movie that I'm going to rewatch again, simply because I didn't connect with it almost at all. And I think that's just because I'm just the wrong demographic for it. I still think it's generally good. Like, I don't think that it's average. I think that it is good, which would put it into the B tier. But I'm going to put it at the bottom of B tier because it's closer to a C than a B. But in general, I think that it's a good movie. I couldn't really relate to it at all. And I also, I kind of like the idea of the red panda more so representing her becoming a teenager, right? You know, growing up, rather than it being like the protector of whatever, right? I just think that, like, there's that whole ending sequence with, like, the giant red panda and whatever, and the mom and the kaiju fight, and I didn't really think that was necessary per se, even though it was kind of fun. But I'm gonna put it at the end of B tier. It's close, like I said, it's closer to a C tier than a B and then an A tier. But I think I'll put it in B tier because I think that it is still a good movie. Objectively, I just didn't personally connect with it. Alright, Lightyear. Yeah, you forgot that Lightyear was made by Pixar. Oh, you also forgot that Lightyear was even a movie? I don't blame you. This movie sucks. Like, I watched this movie when I was sick, and I just wanted to watch something. And I was scrolling through Disney Plus, and there's Lightyear. I hadn't watched it. Oh my god, is this movie terrible. It is just like, it's not as bad as Cars 2 per se, but it's definitely down there. Like, it was such an unneeded movie. Nothing happens. The twist is not good. The music's not really that memorable. The plot is not good at all. Like, I was, while I was watching it, I was trying to put myself into my own shoes, like, because I watched Toy Story and Toy Story 2 in theaters, and I watched it, and I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. And I was trying to put myself into the shoes of a young me watching this movie, or maybe even like putting myself into the shoes of a young Andy watching this movie, because apparently this movie sold him on Buzz Lightyear so much that he changed his whole persona. But no, this movie is a boring, shitty piece of shit, and they never should have made this. This is like, if you thought that Toy Story 4 was a cash grab, Lightyear is an even bigger cash grab. This is the cash grab to end all cash grabs. It's a spin-off of a series. It's also a prequel to a series, and it's setting up like one character in that universe, and actually this movie essentially makes Buzz Lightyear worse. If you want good Buzz Lightyear stuff, just watch the Buzz Lightyear TV show or play Toy Story 2, the video game. This is not good. It's almost as bad as Incredibles 2, but at least Incredibles 2 was, I didn't want to fall asleep watching Incredibles 2. Lightyear though, fuck that movie. Seriously, F tier, easy. And that leads us to Elemental. Elemental is bad. It's not good. The story behind it is more interesting than the actual story itself. The person who wrote and directed this movie He was pulling from his life experiences of moving away from a land and trying to acclimate yourself to culture that you didn't know. This movie does a horrible job of representing that. Like the whole city itself is just a cluster. It's not great. Like, this is not a good movie. It's not like terrible, but you know, it's one of those movies that's like very forgettable. I'm definitely not going to be watching this one ever again. I don't feel a need to. Very forgettable. Just like plot points that are just paper thin. Character motivations that are also paper thin as well. I didn't like Wade. Yeah, that was, I didn't like Wade. Ember was fine, but like everything, like it was just not a great movie. D tier above Brave. Yeah, not super thrilled about Elemental. I would say that's not even worth like a curiosity watch at this point. It's gonna be one of those movies that's just forgotten through the sands of time. You know, like if you go to like a Disney park, what do you see at Disney? You see Finding Nemo, you see Coco, you even see floats of Luca now. You see all the Toy Story stuff, especially in the Disney California Adventure. Ratatouille has rides there. Monsters Inc. pretty popular. Soul has a float. Inside Out, obviously, still a lot of stuff with that. Incredibles, you see a lot of Incredibles. I mean, they're taking it down, but there's the whole Bugs Life experience inside, underneath the Tree of Life. You know, there's a lot of Up stuff and Cars stuff as well. But a lot of these movies that I put lower here, like Onward and The Good Dinosaur, Elemental, Brave, like a lot of these movies, they don't have any representation at the Disney parks, which is crazy because there's a lot of things that have representation at the Disney parks. Let me tell you, there's some things that you would think would have representation there because they're so obscure or so old. But these movies do not show up because they're not good. They're not good. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I think A tier beat, like these are like everything above C tier is definitely worth like seeking out and watching, especially the S tier stuff, of course. C tier stuff, it's like, well, if you have time or if you're curious, watch it. It's good. You know, it's not like it's average. Let's say it's average, right? And then the D tier and below, if you're curious, you can watch these movies at least for their visual flair. Cars, not so much, I guess, but you know, the rest of these have some good visual flair in them. And F tier is really only for the morbidly curious, in my opinion. In my opinion, okay. So there you go. Isn't Turning Red movie a part of growing up process movie, which is perfectly normal and good for teens in general? I said that. I literally said that. Yeah, like I said, it's not for me, but it's for the younger generation who are becoming teenagers. I said all that already. Yeah, Lightyear's just a big piece of junk. Thoughts, questions, concerns? Angry comments? Let me know right now while I just kind of bullshit. Let's see. I mean, I think I posted a top 10 on Discord. I don't know how. I don't remember exactly my rating, but I started at number 10. Let's see, how many are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So probably at number 10, I'd have Monsters University, or maybe even Toy Story 4. Well, actually, this is perfect. The 10 are right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. So yeah, Toy Story 4 is just outside of it, but Monsters University number 10, Toy Story number 9, Soul number 8, Wall-E number 7, Monsters Inc. number 6, Luca 5, which I know is a bit crazy for a lot of people, but I loved Luca. Toy Story 2 number 4, Coco number 3, Finding Nemo number 2, and Ratatouille number 1. That is my personal ranking. And everything else, a lot of it is not like it's not gonna hurt your eyes to watch, you know. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, because Incredibles 2 I put it in F tier, it's like unwatchable. Because you know it does have some stuff in it and some visual, like good visuals in it, but like personally I didn't enjoy it at all. Hey, how's it going, Techno Squeak? Ratatouille's S tier, instantly good tier list. Thank you. Do you think Toy Story 5 will be any good? Like I said, I don't know if Toy Story 5's like Toy Story 4 was a surprise that it was good. I don't see where they're gonna go with the story for Toy Story 5. Woody, Buzz, the entire cast has had their character arcs, and it all capped off at Toy Story 4. Where is 5 gonna go? Is it just gonna be Woody and Bo Peep running around saving toys? Or are they gonna continue Darla's story with Buzz and just forget about Woody? I don't know what they're gonna do with that. It's just yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna. I don't know if it's gonna be good. My prediction is it's probably gonna be kind of average, you know. But, you know. Do you think any movies should get S sequel? Wait. Finding Nemo's S tier. Angry comment. No. Do you think any movie should get S sequel in general? Do you mean a sequel in general? Because if you're asking if any of these movies should get a sequel in general, I think I mean, sequels can be good, obviously. But I think that there are some movies that I don't think need sequels. I think Coco is one of them. I think Finding Nemo was one of them. I'm just looking towards the future. I don't think Luca or Soul would ever need or Elemental, The Good Dinosaur, Lightyear, like Brave. I don't think any of these movies would really need a sequel. Ratatouille, I feel like, is also another one that's like, would I watch a sequel? Sure, but does it need a sequel? No. Monsters Inc. was the same way for me. Well, I guess Monsters Inc. is probably one where I would like to see a sequel. I would like to see the world running with laughter, you know? WALL-E is another one where I could see them doing a sequel, but they haven't, or they won't. Just, you know, WALL-E helping the humans rebuild Earth, I think would be an interesting one, but I do like where it ends, so I don't think it needs a sequel, but I think it could have a sequel. Inside Out is an easy one to get a sequel because the main character, Riley, is growing up, and obviously as you grow up, things change. So adding in more emotions, it's a logical sequel. Does it need the sequel? I don't know if it needs it per se, but I think it at least makes sense. I can see why they made a sequel to The Incredibles. I just don't get why they did it so poorly. Turning Red, I don't think that needs a sequel. A Bug's Life obviously doesn't need a sequel. Onward will not get a sequel. Elemental, once again, I don't think that needs a sequel. I could see them doing one just because it's like, oh, a new element coming to the city or something like that. Yeah, I do agree too. I think that there's some movies that if you put a sequel to it, it kind of would ruin the core experience. Although, you know, I mean, if they did do a sequel to Coco or Luca, you still have that original movie. You know, you can ignore the sequel if you want to. You still have that original experience in that original movie, so I don't think it would ruin it per se. But I do think that it would be annoying for sure. Like if Luca had a sequel, I feel like it would be annoying. Like, why would you need this? It's all money related, of course. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this tier list. If you have any questions or comments, you know, please let me know. I know that there's some rankings on here that I think are probably a bit controversial. I know Up was the one that kind of made people angry, but that's just my opinion. If I recall correctly, they had to mega rush Incredibles 2 because the newest Toy Story wasn't ready, and Disney forced Pixar to push anything out for the holidays. Incredibles 2 was the victim. I think I remember hearing something about that too, which is unfortunate because I think that a true sequel to The Incredibles could have been good. They could have all they needed to do was fast forward the timeline like 10 years and also not make it so 50s themed or whatever. Like, come on. It just clashes so hard with the first movie, in my opinion. Okay, it is almost 10 o'clock, folks. I'm so glad that y'all were able to come and hang out. Do appreciate that. We do these every other Thursday, and the VOD version comes up the following Thursday. So every other Thursday is the VOD version on YouTube. If you want to check out the other things I do, it's all YemmytheFerret. Streaming, we usually stream on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We do have a contest coming up, so if you haven't signed up for that, all throughout the summer months, June, July, August, we're doing marble races to determine what game I play from my backlog, and you can try and guess what game that is. All the rules and stuff are in the Discord. If you want to join, that link is in the description of all my podcasts, but also in the below in the Twitch stuff here. Fabulous prizes to be had, of course. Also, the Ferret 64 podcast, talk about video games. The latest episode I thought was really was good. Of course, I think they're all good, of course. Those come out weekly, though, on Saturdays or Sundays. And then the newest episode of Film Freaks, where I talk about movies with a group of friends, that is coming out tomorrow, and we're talking about the original Planet of the Apes. It was an interesting discussion, so if you want to check that out, that'll be available tomorrow. The last episode was about The Revenant, so if you want to check that one out, that one's already available, but there is a new one coming out tomorrow. Oh, that's cute. You were playing with your real pet ferret? That's cute. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate that. Lurkers are appreciated almost as much as chatters. Alright, y'all. That's going to be it. I don't have anything else to say, or do, or see. I will see you all in about 2 weeks to talk some more. Go over some more stuff. I don't know what exactly we'll be doing next time, but we shall see. We shall see. And of course, if you, the listener, want to suggest topics for the podcast, once again, just head over to the Discord. There is a Ferret Cafe topics section where you can suggest topics for me to talk about. I'll get to most, if not all of them, eventually. But yeah, I do appreciate any suggestions. It does help keep the podcast going, essentially. All right, y'all. I'll be back Saturday for regular stream time. I still haven't picked out a game, but I'll have one picked out by the time that it starts up. But anyway, I am YemmytheFerret. I am out of here. Have a good night or rest of your day, depending on what time you're listening to this. And I'll talk at you next time. Bye-bye.